With another month's worth of progress past, and also with many new followers, I think it's a perfect opportunity to give you a quick look behind the scenes of my modeling process and update you on my current projects. Let's start with the wagons. We will come to locomotives later in this video. To coincide with the Goods Wagon Basic series, I continued redoing my 4-year-old models of the Verbandsbauart Wagons, the first generation of wagons that was uniformly built for all railway operators in Germany from 1910 onwards. I already had redone the stake wagon A4, with and without handbrake, not to mention smaller differences not here shown, like with and without air brakes, different buffers or different generations of brakeman cabins. The bolster wagon A5, once again with and without handbrake, and the 2-axled flat wagon, the so-called rail wagon A11, which only was built without a handbrake. Now in August, I was finally able to add the medium-sided open wagon A1. Unlike my old model, the new one features prototypically removable sideboards, used for loading and unloading. Again, I created a model with and without a handbrake. Furthermore, I redid the covered wagon A2, so far only without a handbrake. Originally I thought it would be a case of only swapping the chassis with the new one, derived from the other redone wagons, and slightly updating the body. How wrong I was! Just like with all of the previous wagons, it turned out to be an almost entirely new model, with everything from the metal fittings, the plank spacing, the door opening mechanism, to the position of the rivets needing to be redone. Also note that I now differentiate between round-headed rivets, used for connections between metal parts, and hexagonal nuts, for fixing wooden planks onto the metal frame. But that also leads me to the reason why I redo these models in the first place, rather than doing models of prototypes I haven't modeled at all. Considering how important this wagon family is in Germany's railway history, not only as they were the first German-wide built wagons, but also the most numerous for decades, still forming a significant part of the goods wagon fleet well after World War II. They were an obvious choice for my first standard gauge wagons, back when I started creating 3D models in Blender. And while I think for a beginner the old models turned out great, they inevitably have many flaws. Now that I have access to way better resources in terms of drawings and photographs, back then I had to purely rely on what I could find online. As well as a much better understanding of how these wagons are built up, I became more and more unsatisfied with the old models. Nothing that could be fixed with a small update or cleanup. They had to be reworked entirely. And as soon as possible too. And not only because of the prototype's importance. You see, as many both older and newer wagons are related to this family and have similar parts, I stayed away from introducing new wagons to my collection for a long time, as deriving a new model from an outdated one would always result into just another outdated model. So, to save myself from having to do the same work twice, I needed to get this family right first. And then I can introduce new wagon types. And that is exactly what I'm doing. Following the covered wagon, I needed to redo the Prussian Guards wagon for the respective video too, where I once again overestimated of how much I could reuse from the old model. It turned out to be almost nothing, which unfortunately meant I didn't come around doing the interior in time, something I certainly want to add at a later date. And for the video about end signals, I finally also needed an older wagon of state railway design. So I derived from the covered wagon its Prussian predecessor, which now that I had a clean standard version was fairly straightforward to do. And I shouldn't forget about the lanterns and signal plates for my latest video. Many of them are also just created in August. A lot of time, however, went into my model of the Prussian T16.1, the upcoming locomotive focused video you voted for. And I may sound like a broken record by now, but also this is one of my older models, firstly introduced to my Instagram page almost 3 years ago and thoroughly updated and predated to Prussian condition 1 year later. And while I don't literally have to start from scratch, almost every aspect of the model has to be at least updated. And despite the many hours I already spent doing exactly that, you probably barely notice any difference. Right? This is because, now once again with much better drawings at hand, I focused so far on correcting the proportions, as well as cleaning up the mesh, drastically reducing the number of vertices, and thinking more about the overall structure of the model and of what individual pieces it consists, with regard of 3D printing. I've also spent a lot of thought of how I could potentially motorize a printed version of this model. I'm generally not yet sure if I want to motorize all of my locomotives, as I don't like the motorization to take away from the looks or from the mechanical functions of a model. However, seeing as with the T16.1, the firebox sits directly above the last two axles. It would be all too easy to connect a motor located in the boiler with one of them through a hidden gear train. But a powered locomotive also needs an easy way to access the axles for cleaning and lubrication, which means I have to split the frame somehow, something I'm still working on. Sure, with the wheels in place you would barely be able to see the split either way. Still, none of the potential solutions I have come up so far really convince me, but maybe that's just a me problem. And once I'm done with the frame, obviously both the cutouts as well as the rivets are still missing. I also need to redo the piping around the boiler as well as the cylinders. So please be patient with me, as I will not be able to finish the T16.1's video for next weekend. And last, but certainly not least, I also started work on an entirely new locomotive. Well, technically already in July, but the majority of the work so far was done in August. However, the V100 is more or less a side project without a fixed completion date. So a video about it will come someday, but not anytime soon. But I have a question for all the experts out there. My model of the V100 isn't just any old V100. What is so special about the prototype I've chosen? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for your interest in my modeling project. It really means a lot to me. A special thank you goes also to my channel members BR151, Contrian, Dave Heise, Flipschwip, Kay Frankly and Lucas Ilskens, as well as the generous one-time donators of the past month for partially funding this channel and thus helping me to continue creating videos. If you like what you see, why not consider subscribing to stay informed about any upcoming videos, or watch my previous ones right away, like these two that might be of special interest to you.